an intruder comes to his house is that, look, this intruder is here, to kill me. I don't have legs. I might not be able to stand up to him, man to man. And so the first thing to do would be to fire shots at that direction. And so, they will not bring in, trying to plead self-defense, kind of saying, okay, a man in this position, how will he behave when confronted with a scenario like this?
This is quite interesting because the word self-defense hasn't really come up in most of the discussions in court, either by the defense or the prosecutor. And one would naturally think that, they would have played this up a few times. How will you expect the defense to establish, the perception of harm?
You see, it is not easy for you to just plead self-defense here, because what had happened, it has been established also that the deceased was not harmed. The deceased, was the girlfriend. Even if he was an intruder, you don't, and when you plead self-defense ordinarily, the question would be against, what harm. And so that is why what you first and foremost want to establish here is to establish the mentality of somebody in his capacity. How will the person ordinarily react to a thing like this? And that's why you see them now talk about, he's disabled, and then people of such mental capacity, how do they react when it comes to an intruder barging in on them like that? This issue. So gradually, if you are able to convince the mind of the court that people in that category are usually very scared, so that the man was so scared of his life that he had to, impromptu, take that step impromptu. And so that's where gradually now, it now becomes clear to the layman that, the angle where they are going is self-defense. But to just plead it as of course, will not avail him at this stage. You need to put the material fact before the court.
Our viewers can at least put one or two together and say, okay, I see why, it's taking so long. It's taking more than 4 months to convince, going back and forth between the prosecutor and the defense. You mentioned something about the court also. All eyes will be on the South African judicial system because of this case.
Yes.
Now, a few people have played on the fact that there is no jury for this kind of case. Will it affect it in any way?
Yeah, that's why I said it was a question of mixed law and fact. Because you find out that where you have jury system like in America, the jury decides the fact. These are everyday people. And so when you bring these everyday people, they should be able to determine how will a reasonable man in this cause behave. Because if you were in America, you would have a disabled person amongst the jury. How will you react in this kind of a scenario? But unfortunately here, what you have is just the judge that will decide both the law and the fact.
And the judge is not a disabled person.
And the judge is not a disabled person. And so you would need to establish that fact. And then it would take the judge, to really look at all of the issues, without any bias, to determine. And in establishing all of this, you also need to call witnesses to say, well, this is it. And then you need expert opinion. For me, if you have the mind to do the crime, then be ready to do the time irrespective of your status. And that's why this is good. Because if you were in some other countries, you probably, because of his status, because of his position in the society, a lot of things would have happened. Some people would have gone to beg the deceased family, let's put this under the carpet, it won't bring back the girl and all of that. But a saner society will say, no, somebody has died, let the law take its course. And so if the law takes its course, some people will say justice has been served, while some will say they really don't see, but let it be seen to have been manifestly done. And that's how societies grow.
Mr. Liberals Oshoma, thanks so much for coming.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And finally on the program, for the first time since 1998 in Tanzania, where hundreds of people were killed during an explosion that rocked Dar es Salaam, injuring more than 5,000 others, the country has again witnessed a series of bombing tragedy. Although no life was lost this time around, 8 people were injured in a blast at a restaurant in the Tanzanian town of Arusha. Police said an improvised explosive device was thrown through the window of the Indian restaurant, frequented by tourists and wealthy locals. The northern town is a gateway for tourists visiting Mount Kilimanjaro and the Serengeti National Park. Just last week, a bomb was also thrown into the house of a Muslim cleric. Police say they have arrested 2 Tanzanian nationals in connection with the latest attack. Although they are not sure what the motives were, they said they did not think militants from the Somali Islamist group al-shabab were to blame. The police have not been able to confirm whether the 2 incidents were related. We will peg it here on Network Africa this week. Keep us posted on your thoughts and suggestions through the email address and phone number on your screen. If you missed any part of the program, please log on to channelstv.com and youtube.com/channelsweb. Till I see you again, I am Adeshewa Josh.
A time comes in the life of every race when people are driven by echoes of the past to chart a course for an exalted future. Africa is at this threshold, as major actors in the Africa arena plots a renaissance towards common destiny. Let's pedal across the streams of yesterday, through the backstreets of Africa to the defining roles of policymakers, the political realities of the African nation, balance of power, and the strive to sustain national interest and identity. Join us on Network Africa on Channels Television. Network Africa, the rallying point for the emergence of a new Africa.